The Long Walk is the latest installment in the saga of Stephen King horror novels turned motion picture, and the ending of this movie is very different from the book. So we're going to break down this movie, the differences and the similarities between it and the source material, and we will explain the ending, what's next for the dystopian America that the movie takes place in, and if anything can truly change. Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Colton Ogburn, and in a dystopian America run by an authoritarian regime, a yearly contest known as the Long Walk takes place. 50 young men are selected from a pool of volunteers who have entered what's known as the Long Walk Lottery. One contestant is chosen from each of the 50 states, and they must walk and keep walking at a pace of 3 miles per hour without stopping. They can't stop to eat, they can't stop to sleep, they can't stop to use the bathroom. If you stop or go under the 3-mile limit, you get a warning. After your third warning, you get your ticket, and there's one winner and no finish line. The final one walking is deemed the winner and granted a cash prize and one wish. There are two main leads, Ray Garrity and Peter McFreeze, alongside other contestants like Billy Stebbins, Arthur Baker, Collie Parker, Gary Barkovich, and Hank Olson. There's also, of course, the major, brilliantly betrayed by Luke Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill. Now, the walk is televised for the whole country to watch, and it is meant to inspire the nation to increase its productivity and pull itself out of its desolate state. The country is, however, under a strict authoritarian regime that bans books and music from the before times being before the big war that took place 19 years prior to the events of this movie. Now, it's unclear if the war was America's involvement in a foreign war, a dystopian reality where the Germans won World War II, or perhaps even a civil war on American soil. That bit is largely left up to interpretation. So when the contestants first arrive, we see this one-way sign on the road, a subtle reminder that in the Long Walk, there's no turning back, you must keep moving forward. And really quick, I just want to give a huge shout out to the performance that Judy Greer delivered in this movie as Ray Garrity's mom. So in 1966, a 19-year-old Stephen King wrote his first draft of The Long Walk. It was published a decade later, but under the pseudonym Richard Bachman, a name that King used from time to time to see if he could still sell his stories without this Stephen King brand that had become a household name. This was also a way to bypass an oversaturation of books under his real name in the market. Other books that were released under the Bachman umbrella were Rage, Thinner, and The Running Man. Now, it wasn't until 1985 that King was unmasked as Bachman, and The Long Walk soared in popularity, and it is now regarded as one of his best works, sometimes even compared to Orwell's 1984. Now, the book and the movie both explore themes of war, desperation, and poverty, as well as fascism. The young men leaving their homes to put their lives on the line for what their government calls a great act of patriotism, but what in reality is a game of chess where these young men are used as pawns. This was meant to serve as a commentary on the Vietnam War. And even today, with modern audiences, the film can draw the same parallels to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Now, there's a part in the film where they mention that no one really knows anyone who has a lot of money, nor does anyone know anyone who doesn't put their name in the lottery to participate in the Long Walk. This reveal is meant to give us a clear understanding of the true desperation that this nation's people have found themselves in. Hell, in our real world, every single day, hardworking people who have to count every single cent just to make ends meet, data shows that those same people set aside a certain amount of funds to purchase a lottery ticket for the opportunity of winning a fortune. They know full well that the likelihood of them winning is astronomical, but they still use the money, of which they don't have much, to purchase the 0.1000001% chance that they could become a millionaire. The same is true for those in the universe of the Long Walk. All of these young men put in for their chance to participate in the walk, but why? Is any amount of money or any wish worth risking your life for? Well, when you're living in a desperate enough situation in an authoritarian hellscape that has robbed you of your freedoms and keeps you living in squalor, yeah, maybe. But the truth is, I think for many of these young men who put their name in, they know, just like those in our real world who buy lottery tickets know, that there's an almost 0% chance that they're actually going to win. And I think the young men in this world of the Long Walk use the fact that they're almost certainly not going to be chosen as the excuse they need to put their name in. Plus, if you win, you can back out, so there's really no harm in putting in for it. And hey, by the way, if you like movie discussions and breakdowns like this one, be sure to check out ScreenCrush on all major podcasting platforms, subscribe to the channel, and check out our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com. Okay, so Ray Garrity has joined the walk because he's on a warpath. He wants to avenge the death of his father. Ray's father showed him contraband such as books and music, a crime that was punishable by death. Ray's father was ripped from their home and given two options: dedicating his life and allegiance to the Major in the efforts of the regime, or execution. He took the latter, and the Major pulled the trigger. This is what inspires Garrity to join the walk, whereas in the book it's left a little more ambiguous. So the book's ending was a little different from the film's ending. In the book, Ray is the final walker and declared the winner, but he doesn't stop walking, he just keeps going, and in the final pages he begins to hallucinate a dark figure ahead of him, and he runs toward it arms wide open. Now, my interpretation of the ending of the book was that this was Ray's embrace of death, and that he finally collapsed and died from exhaustion, but it's left pretty open-ended for your own interpretation. Now, the movie ending, it was different in the fact that Ray didn't have this beef with the Major in the book. Like I mentioned a second ago, his motivations were left more ambiguous, so at the end of the movie, Ray and Pete are the final two walkers, and Pete attempts to sacrifice himself and stop walking so that Ray can win and go back home to his mom. Ray objects and gets Pete to keep walking with him, and while Pete is distractingly looking ahead and talking, we see Ray stop and his ticket is punched. Pete cries and screams in despair as he is deemed the winner of the long walk. In honor of Ray, he asks for the soldier's gun the same way that Ray had planned to. The Major orders it to be handed over to him, showing that despite the evil nature of the Major, he has a great respect for and honors the rules of the long walk. So Pete takes the gun and immediately points it at the Major. After a very brief moment of contemplation, he pulls the trigger and he kills the Major live on camera for the nation to see, in hopes of sparking an uprising to end the long walk and end the authoritarian regime. Pete then drops the gun and continues walking despite the contest being over, just like Ray did in the book. And I have to say, I was kind of surprised that we didn't see Pete get gunned down after shooting the Major, but then again, maybe we did. Maybe in that moment, Pete was shot down and killed and he's laying there dead with the Major, but in the movie, and maybe in his subconscious mind as he begins to drift away and die, he envisions himself continuing the walk. But if that's not the case, and he genuinely did shoot him, drop the gun, and they just let him walk off, then I mean the question becomes, were the soldiers unsure of what to do now that their order giver was dead? Were they scared to kill the winner because of what the winner is supposed to represent and inspire throughout the country? Are the soldiers now feeling freed from the grasp of the Major, and are they now the first recipients of the change that Ray and now Pete sought to create? I'm not sure. It's left pretty up to interpretation, similar to that of the ending of the book. Now, while Pete as the winner likely did inspire the country after killing the Major on live TV, it certainly wasn't the inspiration the regime was hoping for, or was it? The Major had a very take life by the balls mentality, and he cheered on the boys when they would yell and curse at him. So I would have much preferred to have seen the Major encourage Pete to shoot him, and see the Major feeling encouraged that there's finally someone with the spine to stand up to him and take control. Then again, that may have kind of flown in the face of him killing Ray's dad for doing something similar by standing up to the regime. So then the question is, did Peter do the right thing by taking out the Major? Of course not. Violence is never the answer, and I don't want to analyze this too deeply because it'll start to hit very close to home in terms of what's going on right now in our own world today. So please don't misconstrue anything I'm about to say as a commentary on the real world. I am simply talking about the fictional world of the long walk. So, was the Major evil? Yes. Do I blame Pete for feeling enough rage in his heart to kill the Major after he witnessed him slaughter Ray and all of those other boys? No. I get it, but I think Pete, as well as the filmmakers themselves, may have missed a hell of an opportunity to have Pete, give a speech to the nation that would inspire them to rise up against the authoritarian regime and take back their liberty, not through violence, but through unstoppable protest. Use his words to bring down the Major, not a bullet. I would assume that the people living under this regime far outnumber the ones who are overseeing it, and this could have been a great opportunity to end the film with an inspiring and hopeful message. Then again, that's not really what this movie or even this book was about, nor is that the tone that they were going for. Now, as far as what this this dystopian America looks like following the killing of the Major on live TV, it's hard to say. It could spark the uprising that Ray and his father dreamed of, but it could also end in another great war where violence begets more violence and the entire country collapses because Pete went the violence route over the persuasion route. Granted, there was likely no persuading the Major, and at this point it seems like they don't really have much of a country, so it's hard to say. So overall, I really enjoyed the film. It's one of the better film adaptations of Stephen King's work. It's no Shawshank or Green Mile. I might even put that 2017 It above it, but the film, it's good. I'll say that it did feel a little small at times in the sense that we didn't see much of the outside world, but honestly, the vague nature of the surrounding dystopia was probably the right decision because the details of what that dystopian America looks like, they don't really matter. You just need to know that it's there. You get the point. And the walk itself is supposed to symbolize that despite them being on American soil, these boys might as well be on the other side of the globe like soldiers of war. I mean, we are literally seeing them marching in the direction that they are ordered to march, and they can't detour from that path. So I really like the symbolism there, but there was also this weird feeling that the Major is like everywhere. He runs the long walk and he makes house calls to kill those in possession of contraband. Maybe I missed something revealing that he was like the Major of that specific state that Ray Garrity was from. I mean, we know that the walk was taking place in his home state, and we know that his dad was killed in his home state, so maybe that kind of explains it. But hey, those are just my thoughts on the movie. I'd love to hear yours down in the comments below. Let me know, did you enjoy the film? Did you like its slight departure from the book? And hey, how about Mark Hamill as the Major? It's pretty good stuff, yeah. So, thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video. For ScreenCrush, I'm Colton Ogburn.